Chapter 5. Will and Skill. You have to train your mind to be stronger than your feelings, or else you will lose yourself. Mike Tyson. Love stories. That's why I read so much and watch so many movies. One of my all-time favorite movie scenes is from The Dark Knight Rises, the 2012 film directed by Christopher Nolan, in which Christian Bale plays Batman. Batman has tried to escape from prison several times, always with a rope, and has failed every time. He's ready to give up when a blind prisoner says to him, "How can you move faster than possible, fight longer than possible, without the most powerful impulse of the spirit, the fear of death?" Batman says, "I do fear death. I fear dying in here, while my city burns. And there's no one there to save it." "Then make the climb," the blind prisoner says. "How?" "As the child did. Without the rope. Then fear will find you again." I don't have to tell you what happens next. It's a movie, but even so, it fires me up every time I watch this clip. To me, this was art imitating life. Was the other prisoner speaking logically? Did he use a PowerPoint presentation with spreadsheets and a list of pros and cons to inspire Batman? Of course not. So why do you think that's the only way to operate a business? Why are you so quick to abandon emotion in the boardroom or the sales meeting when it's the fuel that moves us? Take a page from the blind prisoner and find a way to tap into willpower, yours as well as others. When people are at their lowest point, when they are terrified, they do the impossible. The F word, fear, gets a bad rap. Fear can drive you to do whatever it takes. You need to make 2 sales to hit your quota? Big deal. What happens if you need 2 sales to pay for life-saving surgery for your kid? Fear is often an easy way to help you tap into will, though it's not the only part of what we also call will. Will is defined as the mental faculty by which one deliberately chooses or decides upon a course of action. Will is emotional. It's wanting something in a way that you can't describe. Skills are logical. They are the tools that allow you to impose your will in a way so that you win. As we will do for all the building blocks. We'll integrate will and skill to keep building your plan. Wanting success is crucial. But it's not enough. In sales, for example, you need to know how to build rapport, ask questions, uncover needs, overcome objections, negotiate terms, and close the deal. Without these skills, all the will in the world will be wasted. After I read Robert Greene's 33 Strategies of War, I bought the audiobook, and for 2 years, I kept it on repeat while I was driving. I probably listened to it 100 times from beginning to end. My will to win led me to work on the skills required to win. In The Dark Knight Rises, for Batman to increase his odds of escape, what skills did he need to develop? Strength, balance, and stamina come to mind. The next question is, what must he do to develop those skills? To fill in the next 2 building blocks, I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. What makes you want success so bad? And what skills must you add to achieve this type of success? What you will learn in this chapter. Money can only move you so far. If your motivation is solely money, you'll stop at some point. You'll become lazy or complacent. If you want to do something big with your life, you have to tap into something more powerful than wealth. The ones who keep fighting are driven by something much bigger. Call it an indomitable spirit, determination, purposeful action, or, as we'll say in this chapter, will. Enemies light the match. Will keeps the fire burning. Some questions to ask yourself as we continue. Where does will come from? Why must you succeed? What does it mean to have heart? How can I push past limitations? You understand what it means to have the drive. But you also need the know-how. As you'll see, will and skill go hand in hand. When I had Neil deGrasse Tyson, the famed astrophysicist and author, on my podcast, I asked him about the indicators of success. He said, to get mathematical on you, why don't we think of each of these features of a person as dimensions on a hypercube? Then he listed the 4 features: grades, social skills, ambition, capacity to recover from failure. The first 2 indicate skills. The second 2 indicate will. The first 2 can be improved by studying and skill building. That doesn't mean the second 2 can't also be improved. In my case, at different points in my life, I lacked both ambition and the capacity to recover from failure. It took an enemy to change my ambition and my ability to recover from failure. As you work through these building blocks, focus on how you can build both skill and will. Willpower, not want power. The story of how Pastor Dudley Rutherford built his church, Shepherd of the Hills in Los Angeles, still moves me. When it was just beginning, Pastor Rutherford's church hosted a 101 class for new members. Each week, every person was welcomed into the parish through this orientation. Unbeknownst to these new members, the following week, every single person who attended the 101 class would get a knock on the door. But this wasn't a simple house call from a friendly fellow parishioner, or even someone selected from a welcoming committee. When these new members opened the door, they found themselves standing face to face with Pastor Rutherford himself. Pastor Rutherford visited every single new member and introduced himself. He did this until his congregation reached 10,000 members. Did you catch that? The first 10,000 members. I didn't believe it myself. I asked him what would happen if he got 40 new members in 1 week. He said he would create a schedule, map it out, and greet each new member with a gift basket. He did this for 10 years. Is it any wonder he has one of the biggest churches in LA? Which word do you think you're not going to find in his vocabulary? Want. Want doesn't get you to knock on doors for 10 years, long after you have made it. Will, on the other hand, means you never stop. Will can be learned. When you have will, you don't need motivation. This is why I actively teach will to my team and to my kids. People have this perception that will is innate, that it can't be taught. So how do you explain an underperforming player or a sales rep changing teams and suddenly turning into a killer? I mentioned Sheena and Matt Zapala earlier. Matt was a Marine with the charisma, work ethic, and leadership skills to be a huge earner. Financial services seemed like an ideal industry for him. Even so, for 15 years, he struggled. Then, when he joined my firm, he caught fire. In addition to building a huge business with his wife, Sheena, Matt built his own brand as the money smart guy and wrote a book called Faith Made Millionaire. The will was always there for Matt to reach his potential. He just needed the right culture and the right enemies to bring out the best in him. Because I've seen enough people excel under new leadership, it's worth making the effort to elicit will. This goes for both business and parenting. When my son Dylan was 8, he became passionate about jiu-jitsu. He kept getting better and building confidence. One day, when we were doing some drills, he said to me, "Daddy, I will be the greatest fighter in the world. I looked him in the eye and asked, what did you say? When I heard my son say that without any prompting from me, I got fired up, especially since none of my kids had ever said anything like that before. He said, Daddy, I will be the greatest fighter in the world. I said, say it one more time. Say I will be the greatest fighter in the world. I will, Daddy. I will be the greatest fighter in the world. I didn't want this moment to go to waste. We went for a walk, and he said it again. We talked about what it will take, how he will need to train, and what this declaration will require of him. Again, he said, I will be the greatest fighter in the world. About 2 weeks after Dylan's declaration, I picked him up from jiu-jitsu practice. His instructor mentioned that Dylan seemed to have lost interest, and his work ethic wasn't what it used to be. At dinner that night, I said, Dylan, what happened today at practice? Didn't you say you will be the greatest fighter in the world? The first thing out of his mouth was, I never said that. I had seen this movie 100 times. I knew exactly what Dylan was doing, and I wasn't going to let the moment go to waste. Dylan, you said you will be the greatest fighter of all time. No, Daddy, I said I want to be the greatest fighter of all time. My wife shot me a look I know all too well. It's the babe, let this one go look. But then Dylan's siblings got into it, and there was a consensus that Dylan had said it. We all heard you say will, I said. You didn't say want. There's a big difference. I'm not going to let you say stuff like that. Dylan kept digging in. I said I want to be the greatest fighter in the world. I never said I will be the greatest. I said, I want to be the greatest fighter. Sometimes, as a leader and a parent, you have to know when to both praise and challenge publicly and privately. As long as we sat at that table, Dylan was going to keep digging a bigger hole for himself. I took him by the hand, grabbed the dogs, and headed outside for a walk. I said to him, Dilly, I've said stuff like that before, but then I'd get scared. Are you scared? Finally, he let his guard down and admitted to being scared. I changed my tone and calmly said, tell me why you changed it from will to want. He said, because, Daddy, if I say will, I have to do it, but if I say want, I don't have to do it. This 8-year-old kid broke down. He was crying on the outside, and I was bawling on the inside. I was so proud. What took me 4 decades to figure out, my son figured out at 8 years old. He figured out the difference between will and want. No one ever achieved anything with want power. How many people say, I want to be pampered for the rest of my life? No one cares. I want to be rich so I can retire my parents weak. I want to travel around the world. Join the club. I want to have a mansion on a corner lot. So does everyone else who doesn't have one. The word want has 0 weight behind it. Want and will start with the same letter and have the same number of letters. One has incredible power. The other has no power. A lot of people forget that Ray Kroc didn't discover McDonald's until he was 58. In one of my favorite business movies, The Founder, you could see people laughing at Kroc's ideas for decades. But through all his failures, he was making big declarations and fighting to make them true. I wasn't there to record his words, but you can bet Ray Kroc didn't say, I want to build an iconic American business. He said will. Going forward, there's no place for your wants. Imagine for a moment that, No matter how bold an idea, you knew you couldn't fail, and no one could hear this thought but you. What would you declare? If you're committed to your vision, tell me what you will do. Dig into your past to find will. Some of you are great at writing down your goals but always seem to get stuck. Progress comes from radical transparency and accountability. When you hit a plateau or get stuck, it's because of a limiting belief or not taking 100% responsibility. Very few can break through limiting beliefs by themselves. You're going to need a special leader, counselor, or therapist. I needed someone in my life to help me through, and thankfully, I found Pastor Dudley Rutherford. My work with him was very personal and very profound. The key is the ability to set your ego aside and be open to receive. If you can do this, the results will be life-changing for you and your entire lineage as your willpower increases exponentially. Again, this comes back to will. The moment you say never again may be the moment that everything changes. Without building your skills, it also may not be enough. The skill is being vulnerable enough to admit you need help in the first place. For your business plan to work, you have to get to the root of your issues. You identify them so you can address them. Skill building means anything that contributes to your life, whether it's joining a gym or starting marriage counseling. Yes, in your building block for skill, I want you to write down the exact actions you must take to overcome your weaknesses, whether they are related more to your business or your life. When you improve, your business improves. Building skills is putting will into action. It's saying yes to getting better. I've heard every excuse in the book for saying no to investing in skills. Too expensive. Not enough time. Too far away. They're all valid. Assuming you want to stay where you are. I mentor an entrepreneur and sales executive named Marlene Gayton, who came from a working class family. Since college wasn't an option, she started working in sales at age 19. She and her co-workers weren't on salary, so it came as a shock when the boss said they had to attend a Tony Robbins seminar and pay for it themselves. Marlene panicked at first, and then she did something smart. She looked around. The complainers didn't stop bitching. The winners bought tickets. Since Marlene knew who she wanted to be, she found a way to dig up the money. In her first year in the business, without a college degree, she made $100,000. I recently asked Marlene what she learned at the conference. She said, "I honestly don't remember anything Tony Robbins said. I was just so proud of myself that I came up with the money and went. I proved to myself that for the first time in my life, I was serious about my own success. It completely changed my identity." Did you catch that? Investing in skills changed her identity. Before she turned 30, Marlene became a millionaire. Together with her husband, Jose, they now run a $40 million a year business. Her success reversed a family tradition of thinking small. Marlene did it with a combination of will and skill. It started with desire and continued because she acted on that desire to keep building skills. She designed a plan for her life that she would never have believed before. Keep developing skills to stay relevant. According to the Harvard Business Review, only 29% of new hires have all the skills required for their current roles, let alone future ones. What skill sets do you need to make this your year? If you're working in technology or if you're an engineer, falling behind is even more pronounced. As fast as technology moves, you have to keep developing skills or you will become irrelevant quickly. Imagine you are a programmer who only knows how to use C and Pascal. Be prepared for lots of boomer jokes and earning 1995 wages. You can't back up a declaration without skills. If you start to obsess about a topic, direct that obsession to acquiring more skills. Put your nose in a book or join a mastermind with other talented people. In 1994, at age 39, Steve Jobs said, "By the time I'm 50, everything I've done up until now will be obsolete." This is a field where one does not write a principia which holds up for 200 years. One skill we often take for granted is using the internet. But even this skill as we know it could soon become obsolete. As artificial intelligence, AI, continues to develop and it's moving quicker than you think you'd better have the skills to utilize it. Peter H. Diamandis, founder of the X Prize Foundation, wrote on his blog, "There will be two kinds of companies at the end of this decade. Those who are fully utilizing AI, and those who are out of business." Ashton Kutcher launched a $240 million AI investment fund in May 2023 and said, "If you're a company and you're sleeping on this, you're probably going to be out of business." It's that good and that powerful from a utilization standpoint. These quotes don't sound out of line when you remember that in the mid-1990s, Bill Gates said, "If your business is not on the internet, then your business will be out of business. Fail to build skills quickly, and your passion will go to waste." Most companies offer training. Others offer reimbursement if you take the initiative to acquire more skills. There are also millions of people who are acquiring critical skills informally on the job or even in their own basements. Gathering new skills is not a question of opportunity. It's all about desire. If you want to learn, you won't have to search hard for how to acquire new skills. If you don't keep adding skills, you won't be able to compete in the marketplace. Here are 3 questions to ask to continue constructing your skill block. 1. Who do I need to be to hit next year's forecast? 2. What 3 to 5 skill sets are required? 3. What will I commit to for training and personal and professional development? How to use books and training to add skills. I can confess to you now that, for years, I was terrible at conflict resolution. The way I improved on that skill is exactly what I'm about to suggest for you. I made it one of my 3 topics of emphasis and read 6 books on conflict resolution in 1 year. Those books included Leading with Emotional Courage, Difficult Conversations, The Hard Truth About Hard Things, and, my favorite, Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High, which has sold more than 5 million copies. All this effort, and believe me it was hard, transformed a weakness into a strength. Instead of immediately setting a goal of reading a certain number of books, first decide what 3 skills you most need to develop next year. It may be that you are focusing on conflict resolution, negotiation, and integrating AI. Your goal is then to read at least 6 books on each topic and attend at least 1 training course on each. By training, it could be a live event, private coach, online course, or mastermind group. You can make the occasional exception, but for the most part, every book you read and every training course you attend is going to relate to these 3 skills. You want to go deep rather than wide. This allows you to find trends and commonalities. You also want to see contradictions, so you can start to develop your own strategies. This type of commitment does more than undo a weakness. It turns last year's weakness into your future strength. Building skills starts with you. If accountability is a point of emphasis in your business, you need to start with your own ability to hold people accountable. In doing so, you'll be able to demonstrate to your team how to be better at it by constantly modeling the right behavior. If you feel like you need to do more, that's when you bring in an expert to lead a workshop, or maybe you lead the workshop yourself. The current version of you doesn't have the skills to execute your audacious plan. If you had what it takes right now, you wouldn't need to improve. By identifying 3 areas of focus and committing to those skills, you are on your way to constructing a rock-solid skill block. Build skills for you and your team. Now that we're talking about building your skill block, you may be asking if you need a plan to build your own skills or the skills of people in your organization. The answer is both. If your CFO is brilliant at numbers but puts everyone to sleep during meetings, that impacts the entire company. If your HR director lacks communication skills, you're setting up your organization for burnout, high turnover, or maybe even worse, quiet quitting. If you're a solopreneur or a person trying to get into business, you only have to think about yourself. If you run a company, you'll work with your team to address their skills. In fact, you are likely already doing so as part of the annual review process. With this business plan, you can integrate those meetings into your plan, which will benefit both you and that individual. At a minimum, ask your direct reports the following. 1. In what 3 areas did you excel this year? 2. What were 3 areas that need work? 3. What do you think you need to do in order to address those areas and/or skill deficiencies? At the beginning of 2022, for my financial services company, we had a kickoff meeting with our VPS as part of an event at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. We took a survey on what skills we needed to develop, and every one of our vice presidents said that they want to improve conflict resolution. Meanwhile, at Valuetainment, we were working on how to improve the communication between content creators, editors, and those on the business side. It was inherently full of conflict, and though we were doing okay, I knew we could improve. In both my organizations, at the beginning of 2022, I made Crucial Conversations the book of the month. For the top leaders, they were required to send me their key insights and then meet to discuss. I then hired a consulting team from Crucial Learning to lead a 2-day workshop for both companies. At $30,000 a pop, I spent $60,000 for the 2 events. A funny thing happened in the few weeks following these workshops. We had more conflict. On the surface, it was a concern, though we quickly realized that people were now comfortable addressing conflict instead of avoiding it. Cold wars were replaced with real conversations using their new communication skills. The investment paid off for both companies. Yes, your plan needs to include ways for everyone who impacts your business to add new skills. When you help others win, you win. That's why one of the best things you can do for others is to lead them to invest in skills. Whom to invest in and how to get others to invest in you. I met Meryl Kishishian when she was my bank teller at Washington Mutual in Mission Hills, California. I was in my late 20s working as a sales leader, and she was an 18-year-old college student at UCLA. I didn't like the way I was being treated and was about to close my account. When I told Meryl, she stayed calm, listened, and respectfully said all the right things to win me over. I knew right then that I wanted her on my team. Once I started my own company, I hired her to be our director of finance in 2011. After she graduated from college, Meryl went on to earn an MBA. She Also quickly moved up the ranks of my financial services firm. I could write a book about all her strengths, but let's focus on her incredible ability to build skills and get me to pay for most of them. If you're an entrepreneur or employee, I recommend that you follow her lead. If you're a CEO or an owner, I recommend you invest in people like Meryl. To get others to invest in you, with both time and money, you have to be outstanding at your job and always exhibit integrity. Nothing is worse than a lazy employee who demands more training. Assuming you have proven yourself, here's the formula that Meryl perfected. 6 ways to get others to invest in your skills. 1. Identify the opportunity, conference, course, event. 2. Write a short description of the return on investment. Focus on how you're getting better helps the company. A. Potential contacts and revenue opportunities. B. Skills that will benefit the firm in the short term and long term. See how you become a more valuable asset to the firm. 3. Give alternatives. Your employer is going to be suspicious of your self-interest, especially if the event is in Hawaii or Las Vegas. You gain credibility when you go to them with several options and not just one training or event. 4. Explain how you will keep up with your work while you're gone. This also shows that you know how to delegate and build leaders. 5. While you're at the event, text key learnings and aha moments. Take a picture of a powerful slide and explain how you see this benefiting the company. 6. After the course, send a summary of what you learned, how you're applying it, and the relationships you built. Focus on how the company has benefited, and if possible, give real numbers that justify the investment. Ideally, you can point to closing a deal, but if not, mention the specific opportunities that were created. I invested $16,000 in sending Meryl to Harvard Business School to take executive courses when she was still the director of finance. The decision was easy, since she followed the above 6 steps in her previous trainings and kept building skills that helped the firm. She was also constantly asking what her blind spots were, how she could improve, and what books I would recommend. And because she took the advice to heart and kept improving, I kept saying yes to more training. At age 31, she joined the C-suite as the Chief Reputation Officer. At age 34, she became the firm's president, which made her the youngest woman president in her industry. Meryl always had the will, and because she stayed hungry to add more skills, she became part of the audacious few. Meetings require skill and will. Have you ever been to meetings for traditional insurance companies? Sadly, I've been to more than I care to remember. They have to take all the knives away from people because the meetings are so catastrophically boring. When you go to an insurance meeting, you don't need paper and pencil. You need a pillow. You do not want to have a reputation for running boring meetings. If you do have this reputation, how can you improve your skill in this area? What action steps must you take to make meetings better? Here is where you start to seamlessly integrate will and skill. Start with these 3 questions. 1. Why is this meeting so important? 2. What is my intention? 3. What behavior and attitude do we want people to have after this meeting? Believe me, the will to have an effective meeting is powerful, because it gets you to spend the time to plan and be skillful in how you set it up. Before, during, and after. Seek out those who lead great meetings. Ask them how they prepare. Ask what books they read or what else they did to get better. Then when you're in their meetings, you'll see that they have a formula. Read the HBR Guide to Making Every Meeting Matter. Study how Jeff Bezos leads meetings, including these 3 tips. 3 rules for meetings according to Jeff Bezos. 1. Keep the group size manageable. Bezos said, "We try to create teams that are no larger than can be fed by 2 pizzas. We call that the 2 pizza team rule." 2. No PowerPoint. Use actual memos that tell stories instead of recite data. 3. Start with silence. Give people time to read the memos or relevant information before starting the discussion. What type of will is required to earn your reputation? As part of a mastermind that I lead, I was mentoring a couple, Matthew and Hengame Stanfield, who started a chain of pizza shops. COVID-19 nearly destroyed their business. Like most companies, they had major staffing issues. Matthew said, "Well, Patrick, we're just thinking we go back to school and maybe we do something else like go into real estate. This pizza thing is getting really hard. And, you know, we just want to go do something else." "What are you talking about?" I asked. "So let me get this straight. You have a recipe that works. You're confident that your product is the best. You have loyal customers. You've been doing this pizza thing for 3, 4 years. Now you want to quit this and go to another industry to learn." They told me yes, and I admit, I got emotional. "So when that next thing gets hard, you'll quit that thing." Only cowards quit when things get hard. The Stanfields have a backbone. They had a solid reputation, and they wanted to protect it. When I challenged them, they fought back. They insisted that they weren't cowards. I asked them to think about what quitting would do to their reputation. This raises a great question about willpower. Some say you can't teach willpower or you can't create willpower. You already know how I feel about that. This is why I'm always looking for the best ways to elicit willpower. You have to know how to poke people to be effective. Sometimes you have to make it hurt. The best leaders know how to disturb people. This couple had strong principles and values. When they said, "Well, what do you think we should do?" the conversation changed. Did the word coward elicit their willpower? My dad has an amazing ability to get under my skin and elicit reactions. His brother, my Uncle Johnny, is 6 feet 5 and loves math. He was a physicist and would always have a physics book in his hand. At 45 years old, who the hell reads a physics book? I was also tall and good at math, so naturally everybody compared me to Johnny. They would say, "You're Johnny Jr., and I saw this as a compliment. Then one day my dad said, "Let me tell you what Johnny's reputation is. His reputation is Mr. 70%. You don't want Johnny's reputation. Anytime Johnny starts something, he takes it all the way to 70%. And then he scraps it. The moment it gets hard, he runs away and starts a new project." I cannot tell you how much that scared the hell out of me to have the reputation of Uncle Johnny. I did not want to be that guy. When I was in high school, my dad would say, "Son, stop being so lazy." It was hard to argue with him when I had a 1.8 GPA. In my early 20s, I was still trying to find myself. My intensity would come and go. I would work hard to win a contest or hit a monthly goal, but I was more focused on partying. I was on my way to becoming Uncle Johnny. When I was 24, not long after that humiliating Christmas Eve, I started to get introspective. I wanted to know where all my anger was coming from. What I learned is that my anger came from my own frustration at not being able to make progress on my goals. I thought I was mad at the world, but I realized that I was mostly mad at myself. Unless it was for showing up at the club on time or making it to Vegas 26 times a year, I didn't have a solid reputation at the time. And only I was responsible for that. I told myself, I will have a reputation as someone who keeps his word. This would be critical to my business philosophy. When I say I'll do something, I want people to know they can bank on it. When Pat says something's going to get done, it's going to get done, period. Ask yourself the hard question about what your reputation is in the marketplace, with your friends, and with your family. Be honest. Do you step up when someone questions your will? What words move you? Coward, quitter, winger? Do you notice a pattern of quitting too soon? Those are questions to reflect on so you can tap into your own will. As I've said, will isn't fixed. When buttons get pushed, we act differently. That's why your job is to figure out how to push your own buttons. What elicits your willpower? What words trigger you? Is there likely some truth to them? Whether you're reading this on January 1st or July 1st, this is a chance to start fresh and cement a new reputation. What do your friends say about you? What do your co-workers say about you? What does your family say about you? What does your spouse say about you when he or she lies next to you? And you know they're thinking something about you but they're not telling you what it is. By the way, if 3, 4, or 5 people say the same thing about your reputation and they all know you very well, it's probably true. Are you okay with that? I'm not telling you to go home and fight them. I'm telling you to earn the reputation that you want to be known by. If you ask people what it's like to work with me, they're going to tell you I'm intense. I have high expectations, and I'm non-stop. I'm always going and don't have the best boundaries. If people say that about me, they're not lying to you. That's my reputation. What 3 words don't you ever want to hear said about you? What 3 words do you want attributed to you? Once you've figured these out, you can start figuring out what skills you need to build to make the reputation you want for yourself. Once you find your will, you'll learn the corresponding skills. You can also tie these questions back to your enemies. Think about someone who you don't like saying awful things about you. How fired up does that get you? For me, because my dad told me about Uncle Johnny's reputation, he elicited the willpower in me that I needed to change this reputation for myself. I declared, I will change. I will make it so that everybody who does business with me will say that my word is gold, that if I say I'm going to do something, it will happen. That declaration, that statement which included the word will, would never have happened or changed my life if my dad hadn't known exactly how to hit me where it hurt. I don't know anyone who wants to be thought of as Mr. 70%, an underachiever, or a coward. What do you want people to say about you? Recruit others to address skill gaps. When you get emotional, you must channel it into an action plan that improves your skills. At times, you can do that work yourself. Other times, you can address it by hiring the right people, delegating, or bringing on the right partners. With the Stanfields, we started talking more about their goal of franchising their pizza business. Neither had any experience in this area. Between them, they were great at making the product and running their stores. It gave them 2 choices: study everything there is to know about franchising and start paying for legal advice, or hire someone who had been there before. They decided on the second option. They didn't have the bandwidth to Learn the franchising game while running the business. This led to the question about skill in recruiting. They asked, how do we recruit who we need? We got into the nitty-gritty of recruiting, and I advised them on how to find the best headhunter. For you, it may be that you have to personally recruit, or you may be big enough to have your own internal HR team. The point is, you either gain the skill or recruit people who have it. This couple ended up hiring 2 former executives from Domino's. Less than a year later, they stood up in front of 2,000 entrepreneurs at the Vault, my annual 3-day business conference, and shared their story of expansion. Not only did they stick with it, but they also grew from 4 stores to 8 with plans to double again in the next year. They made $2 million in the 12 months after they had decided to quit. Why? Because they integrated will and skill. Their story brings to mind that Albert Einstein quote, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer." Once their reputation was challenged, they tapped into their will. If they had quit after what I said, they knew they would be in the group known as cowards. And since that word irritated them, in the moment, I became their enemy. That led them to produce the emotion required to activate them toward acquiring skill in franchising, which for them meant recruiting it. They earned my respect, and more importantly, earned a couple of $1 million and set the foundation for a long run. On the skill side, think about who you need to recruit or what tasks you need to delegate. Let's say you can't stand cooking or grocery shopping and want to eat healthier. It doesn't mean you have to enroll in culinary school or hire a personal chef. What you can do is sign up for a meal delivery service or hire someone for a few hours to do meal prep. Addressing skill deficiencies doesn't mean doing everything yourself. It's a common mistake to think it's all or nothing. For example, as you expand, you're going to need to put in financial controls. Binary thinkers will say, my only 2 choices are to do it all myself or spend $250,000 to hire a CFO. The real solution might be hiring a part-time accountant or a fractional CFO, or contracting out your accounts receivable. Maybe one good intern managed by your crew can at least handle the basic functions. Since we don't live in a world of unlimited resources, you need to find ways to plug holes without doing everything yourself. What skills are crucial to your success that you lack the time, interest, or ability to perform? What's your strategy to bring those skills to your company or to your life? Performance versus trust, human skills. I agree with best-selling author Simon Sinek when he says that soft skills should be labeled as human skills. With that theme in mind, Sinek made a video about Navy SEALs and how they value their team members when they're going off to war. Sinek differentiated between trust and performance, which have some similarities to will and skill. In the military, performance is what you do on the battlefield. Trust is who you are off it. In business, performance is about results, revenue, KPIs, tangible metrics. Trust is about integrity, having others' backs and keeping your word. Who do you value more, somebody you have total trust in or somebody who has a highly specialized skill? What if somebody's an expert, but you don't trust them? What if somebody is trustworthy, but they have no clue what they're doing? While you're thinking about those answers, take a look at this matrix. Did this matrix make you think about where people on your team fit? Does it make you consider whether you are giving enough credit to trust? Back in 2011, I identified 4 people who were at the top of the trust axis but had skill gaps. Their names were Patrick, Merrill, Mario, and Tigran. Yes, that Patrick was me. I was at the top of that list. Since I needed to work on leadership and on how to be a better CEO, I enrolled in a leadership course at Harvard. It killed me to step away from the business for a month, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. As we discussed before, when Meryl joined the C-suite of our company, I sent her to take the same course. Mario and Tigran were cut from the same cloth. I trusted them completely, and their will to succeed was off the charts. Mario started off as the quintessential Ernie. He truly was willing to do anything, but when he couldn't execute, both his esteem and the projects he worked on would suffer. Tigran was a talented graphic designer who I saw as a leader. He had strong hard skills, but he needed leadership skills to step into a bigger role. That's why I didn't balk at the tuition price of $12,000 for a marketing course at Wharton Business School. After expenses, I spent close to $30,000 to send Mario and Tigran to Wharton for a week. I could give you a list of logical reasons why it was a good investment. They learned tangible skills that made them better at their jobs. They brought in new ideas to the company. They networked with high-caliber individuals who forced them to raise their game. What stood out to me most, though, is that, when they returned to the office, they walked differently. Their identity changed. Sure, my investment in them created loyalty, but it was something bigger than that. It was a belief, backed up by a financial investment, that elevated Mario and Tigran beyond anything I could have taught them in the office. Now, both are strong leaders who raise standards and set the tone for our company culture. I'm in the anticipation business, so I can guess what many of you are going to say. That's a boatload of money. What if those guys leveraged that Wharton credential to get another job? Though I'm tempted to explain why I was willing to take that risk, I'll leave it to two others. Henry Ford said, "The only thing worse than training your employees and having them leave is not training them and having them stay." And Richard Branson said, "Train people well enough so they can leave, treat them well enough so they don't want to." What about the highly skilled people you don't trust? If you're saying that you have no choice but to take the good with the bad, this is a sign that an area you need to work on is leadership development. If you believe you are stuck with these people, it means you haven't developed the skills of the people you do trust to do the job. Who do you think Meryl, Mario, and Tigran replaced? I can't go to war with people I don't trust. In some cases, you can put these people in a silo. If it's a software developer, maybe you can give them a project to work on independently. Again, I would be very careful, and if given the choice, I would pick someone with less skill and higher trust. Trust and personality are different. Let's just say you have a full-on genius of a person who is the best coder but horrible with people. Or you have a CFO who is highly skilled but puts everyone to sleep in his meetings. What do you do with these people? It depends on how coachable they are. In other words, do they have the will to want to get better? If so, make the investment to build their skill block. They might end up becoming some of your most trusted employees. In a perfect world, everyone on your team would rank high in trust and high in skill. Since we don't live in a perfect world, you have to take inventory. The people who you trust the most likely also have the strongest will. If any of those people are low in skills, you must lock onto them. Skills can be taught. Investing in high will/trust people is likely the best investment you can make. People with strong hard skills and good character turn into reliable citizens who create linear growth for your organization. People with soft skills who experience a paradigm shift become impactful citizens who create exponential growth. Your goal is to create that paradigm shift for a few people, who end up bringing your company to an entirely new level. Elicit will and build your skills. Once you've fully tapped into your will, you are ready to set the world on fire. With this emotion, you feel like you can conquer anything, whether it's the bench press, a pitch deck, or your sales quota. But you also need the skills to do it. You now understand that will isn't fixed. You can bring it out in yourself and in others. It requires asking the right questions along with the willingness to act urgently when the answers come. Those actions are the ones that help you build the skills required for you to be the person you want to be, which is far different from who you are now. Your blocks. Will. 1. What makes you want success so badly? What's your plan to convert want power to willpower? 2. What do you fear most? What thoughts or emotions make you so emotional that you want to do everything in your power to avoid feeling them? 3. What 3 words don't you ever want to hear said about you? 4. What 3 words do you want attributed to you? 5. How can you lead in such a way that elicits willpower in others? 6. What patterns and limiting beliefs do you see in yourself, and what will you do? Or who will you seek for guidance, to be the one to stop them? Skill. Actions. 1. Who do you need to be to hit next year's forecast? What 3 to 5 skill sets are required? 2. What type of skills/training will you commit to that has the potential to change your identity? 3. Where do your leaders or team members lack skills? How will you address them? 4. For skills you are not going to address yourself, how will you delegate or who will you recruit? 5. What choices will you make after looking at your performance versus trust matrix? Who will you invest in and which skills will you emphasize? 6. Fill in the blank. I want my reputation to be defined by the words